My brother stole my house and my savings, so I got the last word. I never imagined my brother, Mark, would betray me. We were always close, or so I believed. But the moment our parents passed, everything changed. Their will was straightforward. Everything was to be divided equally between Mark and me. The house, their savings, all their assets. They trusted us to work it out together, always saying, "You two take care of each other." It should have been that way, but Mark saw things differently. When the will was read, it all seemed fine. We each inherited half the estate. But as we left the lawyer's office, I saw a shift in Mark. His eyes no longer looked like a grieving son. They looked like a man calculating what he could gain, what he deserved. At first, I thought I might be overreacting. This was my brother, after all. But over the next few weeks, things grew strange. The first thing Mark did was sell the house. Just like that. No discussion, no "what do you think?" Just a phone call telling me he'd sold the family home because it was time to move on. I had barely begun to process my grief, and he was already liquidating our parents' belongings. "What do you mean you sold it? The house was supposed to be for both of us," I yelled when I found out. He shrugged it off as if it were nothing. "It's just a house, Anna. We don't need it. You weren't even living there. I'm the one who's been taking care of everything. Besides, I've got plans for the money. You wouldn't even know what to do with it." I was stunned. My childhood home was gone, and Mark had kept the money. When I demanded my share, he promised he'd take care of it, but that never happened. I began to realize this wasn't just an unfortunate choice. He was trying to cut me out completely. Days turned into weeks, and I watched him live extravagantly. He bought a new car, went on lavish trips, and invested in business ventures that sounded promising. Meanwhile, I was stuck, unable to even pay my apartment bills. My share of the inheritance was gone. I had nothing. The final blow came when I discovered he'd secretly transferred a portion of my inheritance into his own accounts. It wasn't a mistake. It was calculated. One afternoon, after piecing everything together, I walked into his place. I needed to confront him. "Mark," I said, standing in the doorway, "you need to explain this to me. Where's my money?" He barely looked up from the TV. "I told you, Anna, I'm taking care of it." I wasn't having it anymore. "You don't get to take care of it. That was my inheritance too, and you've been stealing from me this entire time." He finally turned off the TV and looked at me, that smug expression I hated on his face. "You don't get it, do you? I'm the one who's been running everything. I've been putting in the effort to make something of myself. You've just been sitting there feeling sorry for yourself. You never had a plan. I had to make sure I could survive." I felt my blood pressure rise. "You think you're entitled to all of it? To everything? You're not the only one who had dreams, Mark. You don't get it. You've always been the lazy one, Anna, always." He looked at me like I was beneath him. "I'm the one who actually knows how to make money. You're just a dreamer. Get over it." That's when I snapped. "You took my future," I said through gritted teeth. "You took the house, the savings, and you're acting like I owe you everything? Well, let me tell you something. This isn't over. Not by a long shot." I could see his confidence waver, but he didn't care. "You can try all you want, but you won't get anything. The money's mine now." Just like that, he had crossed the line. I left his apartment, but I wasn't done. I had a plan, and it was time to make my move. First, I started tracking every transaction I could find. All of Mark's business deals, his investments, the accounts he'd set up with my money, every little thing he was doing to cover his tracks. But the most important thing was the one card I had left to play. The inheritance he'd forgotten about, the one that could ruin his reputation. He was so sure he was untouchable that he didn't even notice the danger creeping up behind him. And when I exposed it, when I exposed everything, that's when his world would come crashing down. But I wasn't going to do it just yet. First, I had to make sure I had all the pieces in place. The first thing I did was hire a lawyer, not just any lawyer, but someone who specialized in trust and estate law. I knew Mark had been too careless with his moves, and I had to make sure I covered every angle. If there was one thing my parents taught me, it was that you never go into a fight unprepared. It wasn't easy. My lawyer, Grace, wasn't thrilled about the idea of going after my brother, especially with family involved. But she could see the facts. Mark had broken the rules. He'd manipulated documents, forged signatures, and hidden large sums of money in offshore accounts. But the real kicker? He'd gotten himself into more trouble than I could have imagined. When Grace ran a background check on Mark, we found out he wasn't just being shady with my inheritance. He was also in serious debt. His business ventures were all funded by high-interest loans, and if one thing was clear, it was that he was sinking fast. So I waited. I watched him spend recklessly, clinging to the illusion that everything would work out for him. But it wouldn't. Then one day, the phone call came. "Anna, we found it," Grace said, her voice low. "Mark's been using your money as collateral for a loan with a private lender. It's a loan he can't pay back. If we act fast, we can expose everything." I felt a rush of adrenaline. This was it. Mark had dug his own grave, and now it was time to push him into it. The next day, I showed up at Mark's place, feeling more determined than ever. I had my evidence in hand, ready to confront him. He was lounging on the couch, scrolling through his phone, acting like nothing was wrong. "Mark, we need to talk," I said, standing in the doorway. He didn't even look up at first. "What now? Are you still whining about the house?" I stepped into the room, placing a folder on the coffee table. "No, it's not just about the house anymore." He glanced up at me, rolling his eyes. "What are you trying to pull now, Anna? I told you, there's nothing left. Get over it." I opened the folder and slid a series of documents across the table. "You're in serious trouble, Mark. The money you've been playing around with? It's not just my inheritance. You've been using it to cover your debts, and now the lender wants the money." His expression faltered for the first time. "What are you talking about?" he muttered, grabbing the papers and scanning them. "I've got everything right here," I said, watching as the color drained from his face. "You thought you could do this to me and walk away clean, but you're about to lose everything." His hands shook as he held up a piece of paper. "This isn't real. You can't do this. I'm going to make sure you do the right thing," I interrupted, my voice icy. "Either you pay me back what you owe me, or I'll make sure this all comes out. I'll go straight to the lender, tell them what you've been doing, and watch you lose everything. The house, your car, your so-called businesses. I'll make sure the world knows what you've done with our parents' legacy." For a moment, Mark just sat there, staring at me like he was processing everything. He opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out. I could tell he was panicking. He didn't know how to talk his way out of this one. "I'll give you a week, Mark. A week to come up with a plan. If I don't hear from you by then, I'll expose everything. This is your last chance." He stood up quickly, his face turning red with anger. "You think you can control me, Anna? You think you can push me around like I'm some idiot? I'll destroy you first." I didn't flinch. "You already have. But I'm not going down without a fight. Not anymore." With that, I turned and walked out of his apartment, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. But as I walked away, a sick feeling crept into my stomach. Mark was dangerous when he was backed into a corner. He had a way of manipulating people, of making them doubt themselves. He wouldn't go down quietly. I knew I'd won the battle, but I wasn't sure I was ready for the war that was coming. The next few days felt like I was walking on a tightrope. Mark hadn't reached out. I wasn't sure if that was a sign he was planning something, or if he was just too rattled to act. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had given him too much time, that maybe he was scheming something behind the scenes to turn the tables on me. I spent hours with Grace, making sure every detail of our plan was airtight. The last thing I needed was to miss something crucial that could blow up in my face. Then, exactly a week later, Mark called. I was sitting at my desk when my phone buzzed, his name lighting up the screen. My heart skipped a beat. I almost didn't pick up. Part of me wanted to make him sweat, but I knew I couldn't afford to make the wrong move. I hit accept. "Anna," he said, his voice sounding different, wearily calm, like he had finally realized he had no choice. "We need to talk." I forced myself to stay composed. "I'm listening. I'll give you what you want. I'm not going to let this blow up. But there's something you need to know first." His voice wavered, almost pleading. I'm in deeper than you think." I clenched my fists. "What do you mean, deeper?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Mark sighed. The money I borrowed wasn't just to cover my personal debts. There's more. I got involved with the wrong people, Anna. There are people who don't take kindly to defaults. If I don't pay them back soon, they're coming after me. And you. My stomach dropped. What are you talking about? Why didn't you tell me this before? I didn't think it would get this bad. I never thought you'd catch on. But now I need your help. Anna. I'm asking you, no, begging you. Let me keep what I have left. I can make it right. I'll give you your fair share. Just please, I need more time. The desperation in his voice was almost convincing. Almost. But I knew better. This wasn't about me anymore. It was about him trying to hold on to whatever scraps he could. Why should I believe you? I asked, my voice sharp. You've already lied, manipulated, and stolen from me. Why would I risk everything for you? I'm not asking you to risk everything. Just trust me. Let me fix this. He sounded almost frantic now. If you go to the lender, they'll come after me. They'll ruin both of us. You won't get anything. I could practically hear the panic in his voice. It was the same panic I'd seen in his eyes when he realized I wasn't backing down. But the more he begged, the less I felt like I owed him anything. I had no intention of letting him wiggle out of this. Mark, I'm not your safety net, I said firmly. You've burned that bridge. You're on your own. But if you want to keep pretending you still have a future, fine. I'll let you have your last shot. But it's not going to be easy for you. And if I so much as see you try to pull anything else, I'll expose everything. No more chances. There was a long pause before he spoke again. Fine. You win. But just know this. I won't forget what you've done. I'll make you regret this. I hung up without another word. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I felt a strange sense of relief. I had set the stage. The next move was mine. But I couldn't ignore what Mark had said. The wrong people. What had he gotten himself into? And how far would he go to keep up his facade? I reached out to Grace again, telling her about the conversation. She warned me that this could spiral into something far worse, but we were both certain the final nail in Mark's coffin was coming. He just didn't know it yet. Still, as much as I felt like I was winning, I couldn't shake the feeling that this game wasn't over. Mark was dangerous, and if he truly had gotten involved with the wrong people, he wouldn't hesitate to drag me down with him. Then I got a call that made my blood run cold. It was from the private lender Mark owed money to. Ms. Wright, we've been trying to get in contact with your brother, the voice said, its tone icy and businesslike. It seems he's disappeared. My stomach twisted. What do you mean, disappeared? We've been unable to reach him for days. He's missed his payments, and now it's more than just money. We'll be coming to speak with you about your involvement. I felt a chill run down my spine as I sat frozen, holding the phone to my ear. The voice on the other end was calm, but the words carried a weight I couldn't ignore. You're coming after me? I managed to say, my throat dry. The voice didn't soften. We have reason to believe your brother has been using your inheritance as collateral for loans that have gone unpaid. We've been in touch with him, but he hasn't responded. If you don't cooperate with us, we'll have to pursue other measures. I couldn't breathe. This was worse than I thought. Not only was Mark buried under a mountain of debt, but now he was dragging me into it. They wanted to involve me, make me a part of his mess. My brother, the same person who'd stolen everything from me, was now trying to pull me into his despair even deeper. Why would you think I'm involved? I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. I have nothing to do with his loans or business deals. The papers we have show you as a co-signer on the debts, the voice said flatly. We believe you've been complicit in some of his dealings. I felt my stomach twist into knots. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about my name, my reputation. They were trying to pin all of it on me. I fought to keep calm. I need time to look into this. I'll be in touch with my lawyer. Don't take too long, the voice warned. You'll want to act fast. The call ended, and I stood there for a moment, trying to process what had just happened. My legs felt weak beneath me. Mark had put me in a position where I could lose everything I had left. It wasn't just my house, my savings. This was my future too. I picked up the phone and dialed Grace's number. Anna. Grace answered, her voice warm but strained. "What's going on?" I filled her in, telling her about the call from the lender. When I finished, there was a long pause. "This is bad, Anna," she said quietly. "It sounds like Mark has sold you out, trying to drag you into his mess to protect himself. We need to act quickly before this spirals any further." I felt the anger building inside me again. Mark had ruined everything. First he stole the house, then the savings, then my future, and now he was trying to drag me into his debt hole. How could he do this to me? I spent the next few hours pacing, trying to think of any way out. The lender was right. If they could prove I was involved, I would be just as guilty as Mark. But if I confronted him now, would he lie his way out of it again? Then it hit me. This wasn't about playing nice anymore. This was about survival, and I wasn't going to let Mark or anyone else destroy my life. Not without a fight. I reached out to a few contacts, gathering information about the lender. I couldn't just sit back and let them push me around. If Mark had been involved in illegal dealings, I had to know the full extent of it. If I was going to get out of this clean, I needed every detail. Just as I was about to call Grace back with a new plan, my phone rang again. This time it was Mark. I hesitated before answering. "Mark." He didn't waste time. "Anna, we need to talk." I swear I didn't want any of this to happen. I didn't know they were going to come after you. I've made a huge mess of things, and now I cut him off. "You think this is still about you?" I snapped. "You've taken everything from me. The house, the money, the future I was supposed to have. And now you're dragging me into your mess? You think I'm going to help you after everything you've done?" His voice wavered, but there was still a hint of arrogance. "I didn't want this, Anna. I didn't ask for any of this. You've got to understand, I'm trying to fix it, okay? Just trust me. I'll make it right." I wanted to scream, but I held back. "You've broken every ounce of trust one had in you. You're not fixing anything. You're digging yourself deeper, and now you're dragging me down with you. I've already had enough of your lies." I could hear the desperation in his voice as he pleaded. "Please, Anna, don't do this. Don't go to the lender. I'm telling you they'll come after you. They're dangerous, and you don't know what they do." A cold realization settled in my chest. The people Mark had gotten involved with weren't just moneylenders. They were people who didn't play by the rules. I'd seen enough movies to know what people like that could do to protect their investment. But what could I do? If I didn't act, Mark's mess would ruin me. "I'm done with you, Mark," I said, my voice steady but final. "Don't ever contact me again." And I hung up. My heart was racing, but it wasn't out of fear anymore. It was out of something else, something powerful that I hadn't felt in a long time. It was anger, yes, but it was also resolve. Mark had crossed every line, and now I was going to make sure he paid for what he did. I reached out to my lawyer, Emily, immediately. She had been a lifeline through all of this. While Mark played his games, I'd been quietly collecting evidence, gathering everything that could prove I wasn't involved in any of his shady dealings. I had no intention of being dragged down with him. By the time I met Emily in her office, I was already feeling the weight of the situation lift off my shoulders. She looked over the documents, her eyes scanning through the details of the case. "Anna," she said after a moment, leaning back in her chair, "you did the right thing by cutting ties with him. I've gone over the paperwork, and I've got some good news. You're not on the hook for any of this." My chest tightened. "What do you mean?" "The lender said I was involved." She cut me off with a small smile. "They're full of it. I've contacted them and reviewed everything. Your name was never legally attached to the debts. Mark tried to use you as a scapegoat, but we've made it clear to them that you had no part in any of his dealings. They were bluffing." I let out a breath I didn't even know I'd been holding. "So I'm clear? No more threats." "Exactly. It's over," she said, pushing a few papers toward me. "And we've also got something else. Remember how I told you to track every detail of his financial situation? Well, I found something. Mark's been using your inheritance as collateral for multiple loans, and he's behind on a few of them. But here's the kicker. The lenders don't have legal grounds to go after you, and Mark has no more bargaining power. His creditors are going to cut him loose. The best part? They'll be taking him to court soon. We're talking fraud and misappropriation of funds. He's done." I stared at her, shocked. The weight I'd been carrying for months had finally lifted. It wasn't just that I was free of Mark's mess. It was that he was about to face the consequences of everything he'd done to me. "I can't believe this," I whispered. I thought I was going to lose everything." Emily gave me a reassuring look. "You didn't. You did everything right, and now Mark's going to pay the price for what he did to you." A mix of emotions flooded through me, relief, joy, but there was also something else, satisfaction. Finally, after all the betrayal, the manipulation, the lies, I had control. And now Mark would have to face the reality of his actions. The next few weeks went by in a blur. Emily's firm sent a formal letter to the lenders, shutting down any further claims against me. Mark, meanwhile, was left with nothing but his own mess. The court case was coming, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The truth was out. The creditors knew everything. His lies had finally caught up to him. I stayed out of it. The last thing I needed was to get tangled up in his mess any longer. My focus shifted to rebuilding my life, starting with my house. I took back what was rightfully mine, and with Emily's help, I even started a plan to begin fresh. For the first time in a long time, I was excited about the future. A month later, I ran into Mark at a coffee shop. I had to admit, seeing him looking haggard and broken, his once confident demeanor shattered, felt oddly satisfying. He didn't recognize me at first, and when he did, his face twisted into a mixture of disbelief and anger. "You," he stepped forward, his voice sharp. "You did this. You had me thrown under the bus." I gave him a cold, steady look. "No, Mark. You did this to yourself. You played your cards wrong, and now you're reaping the consequences." His hands clenched into fists, but he didn't move. There was nothing left for him to say. The man who had once controlled everything was now completely powerless. "I don't need anything from you anymore," I told him, turning to leave. "You lost it all, and you're going to keep losing until you understand that." For the first time, I wasn't angry. I wasn't scared. I was simply done. As I walked away, I felt a strange sense of freedom wash over me. No more manipulation, no more guilt. I had taken control of my life, and it was mine again. The revenge wasn't in the destruction I could have caused. It was in the fact that I walked away stronger, more determined, and with my future finally in my hands. And Mark? Well, he was left with nothing.